You are listening to the Beyond Believing podcast. I am your host, Katie Ann. I am a certified life coach, a divorced mom to 5 amazing children, and I am here to share some love and encouragement with you about healing and moving on post-divorce as a Christian woman. Stick around after the show for some details on how we can work together. You are listening to the Beyond Believing podcast, episode number 31. All right, friends, we are continuing on with our series that I am calling Lessons from the Father, things that I have learned post-divorce from God as He has taught me how to heal and rebuild and move on post-divorce, and I'm sharing them with you. And this week, I am talking about sacrifice. And I'm going to say I had a very different outline lined up when I sat down to write this out and type it up. Something very different came up. So we're going with what came different because I just think that's maybe what God wants me to share. So we're going with it. I am using the Hebrew name for God, Yahweh, or Jehovah, for this term of sacrifice because I just love this so much. So Proverbs 18:10 says, "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous man runs into it and is safe." Now, you might be wondering, how does that have anything to do with sacrifice? But I'm going to go through this. And as I'm talking about this, hopefully that will make sense because I just think we need to be reminded sometimes that we're not just sacrificing for our own sake. We are sacrificing with the strength of the Lord and with Him watching over us and protecting us like a strong tower. And He's keeping us safe on this journey. So hopefully that all connects and it makes sense. But I just thought that was a really beautiful reminder that as we are living life, rebuilding, like I said, healing and trying to move on post-divorce, it often feels very lonely and isolating and like nothing's going your way. And I just want to remind you that it is going perhaps the Lord's way and that He is keeping you safe, but you are going to have to run to Him. Okay, so in light of that, I am also sharing what I love this verse from Psalms. This has been on my mind quite a lot the last couple of weeks because sometimes as we're on this journey, or just journey in general, friends, as we are living life as humans on this planet, it can feel a little isolating or lonely or like you're not really sure if you're on the right track. And this verse has just brought me so much peace and comfort. And it is Psalm 25:15. And it says, "My eyes are ever on the Lord, for only He will release my feet from the snare." So hopefully this ties all in, friends, because that just is beautifully summed up. And it just brings me so much peace as I'm planning and preparing and then remembering this isn't about me. This is about God and His journey and where He wants me to be and where He wants me to go. And He's going to be taking care of me. He's going to release me from any snares. And as I run to Him, He's also going to be that strong tower and keep me safe on this journey. So hopefully this all ties together for you. I'm talking about sacrifice and because there are a lot of types of sacrifice as women. And this actually has changed so much for me on my journey as a new believer of God and the biblical God, who I actually didn't learn about growing up. But it just made me think about all the things that we do in the name of life as women, in the name of womanhood. We create all these sacrifices, and I think we often do it all for the wrong reasons. I'm not going to talk about all of them because motherhood is a huge sacrifice, right? Our family, our time, what we do for service, life experiences, and work. I'm only going to be talking about today our relationships, though. The relationship with ourselves and romantic relationships. And I am focusing only on these because this is where I see divorced women struggling the most. I know I did and have. And so I'm going to be sharing what I really feel like God has taught me about these specific relationships and what we do that make them good and perhaps maybe not so helpful in the name of sacrifice for this relationship. So first, personal relationships, and I mean interpersonal, like with yourself, your personal relationship with yourself, because if you didn't know, friends, all relationships you have in life are based on the quality of the relationship you have with yourself. So if you don't have a very good relationship with yourself, you're not going to have very good quality relationships with other people. This is really foundational for you to understand. I shared in episode number 1 about thoughts and facts, and I talked a lot about our higher brain and our lower brains, which I like to refer to as our godly brain and our worldly brains. And while they both have really good purposes, sometimes in the name of sacrifice, we default too often to this lower or worldly brain that we have, and we sacrifice our long-term happiness for our short-term comfort, which is what our lower brain or that worldly brain is designed to do. It's designed to keep us from danger. But the problem is it also keeps you from doing a lot of things that are really good for you for your future, because it tricks you into believing that you're safe right where you're at. And the problem with this is we think that we're saving ourselves from discomfort or pain or suffering by staying quote unquote safe with what we know. In reality, we are already suffering, friends. You're already suffering by sacrificing your long-term goals and plans. You cannot achieve those without sacrificing your current state of comfort. Okay? You gotta give up some of the reins and you gotta get a little uncomfortable in the short term in order to achieve the long term. I am sharing about this because I had a conversation with my 10-year-old this week that I just couldn't help but be reminded of the importance of this. And it's really easy to point this out in other people. It's not always as easy to point it out in ourselves, which is why coaching is so helpful, because that's what I do. We teach you how to point those out. Where are we sacrificing our long-term goals in the sake of our short-term comfort, believing we're really keeping ourselves safe, and we're really not. So we not only prolong our suffering, we delay our growth, and we're already suffering already because we're already familiar, and we're either sacrificing our future potential or our current comfort and self-gratification. And friends, this is what I was talking to my 10-year-old son about, is in the moment, that self-gratification and that comfort of like, I'm not going to get up and do something I don't want to do right now because I'm comfortable right here and I want to play. He specifically wanted to be playing a video game instead of doing what he needed to do. And it was more fun for him to sit and play the video game. And we all have our own version of a video game that is just keeping us safe, where it's scrolling or staying in the same cycle. That's really not getting us where we want to go. And why that causes suffering in the short term is because we know we're not doing what we need to do. That doesn't ever feel good, friends. So just a reminder here that our brains are trying to quote unquote, keep us safe by keeping us out of doing anything that's uncomfortable. But you got to get uncomfortable to create something you've never had and to do something you never do. So just start getting a little bit uncomfortable. And this is really important again, because like I said, all of your relationships with other people are stemmed off of your ability to do this for yourself. You are going to tolerate short-term status quos in relationships that you allow for yourself. You're going to tolerate behaviors and the level of respect that you give yourself. So if you're not giving yourself respect and honor and value, and if you haven't already figured this out, God will do this for you. I love this question in Matthew when Christ asks his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" This is a really powerful question, and I have shared this before, but I'm going to share it again because if you haven't done this, you need to go do this. This is so helpful, friends, because if you don't recognize your value as a woman of God, no man is going to recognize it because you're not going to hold him to the standard to make him recognize it. So that's what we're going to be talking about, romantic relationships here. And what I want to point out is you can't have a biblical, God-fearing man if you are entertaining unbiblical, ungodly men. This is the exact example of how we sacrifice what we want in the future for what is comfortable for us right now. If we are used to unbiblical or ungodly men, if we are used to a level of respect or honor or treatment or the lack thereof, because we don't acknowledge it, we are not asking ourselves, like Christ asked the disciples, we have to ask God, "Who do you say I am?" And he's going to tell you and show you if you really want to know. And be prepared because he's got good stuff for you. I promise. He has really good stuff for you. When you start to see yourself from that perspective, the perspective that God sees you as, you just naturally start to tolerate less disrespect, less worldly ideas about a relationship and the treatment of yourself. You start to crave his word and get into his word and allow him to show you your worth and your value as his child. And you just start avoiding or weeding those type of men out. But you gotta be willing to do that. And that means you gotta sacrifice some short-term comforts. You gotta sacrifice what you want most in this moment for what you want in the future. And tolerating what you want now or close enough is not gonna get you there. Like I mentioned last week about red flags, we ignore these red flags in relationships and they end up coming back to be the breaking issues in a relationship because you know there's something about this that isn't right and you're tolerating or settling and you're sacrificing your own standards. And friends, that does not feel good. I know you know it doesn't feel good because you're just hiding and trying to play this safe. Don't sacrifice your standards, please. You aren't truly where you want to be and you know it. So you keep sacrificing yourself and you know it and you keep trying to make it work because you don't want to be wrong again. And you sacrifice your future happiness for your present comfort because you're telling yourself letting go of this current quote unquote good enough will cause you pain. But guess what? You are already in pain, friend. Because you're not living up to your own standards and you are allowing and settling for someone to treat you in a way that is not what you want. This is how our brain, and I truly say the enemy, traps us in what we believe are safe situations in life. This is, again, that lower worldly brain I taught about in episode 1. It thinks you're avoiding discomfort, but you're not. You're just avoiding a discomfort you don't know. You are trading a discomfort you know for a discomfort you do not know, which really isn't better. It's not really different. And this is where you have to tap into your higher or godly brain, asking God, who do you say I am? Listening to it, and you're going to have to use and exercise some self-discipline for your future self. Is it going to be comfortable? No, it's not. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, it is. Will you sacrifice some temporary pleasure? Yes, you are. But this is where you have to have some tough, honest conversations with yourself. Do you really want to have what you have right now? Or do you want to have a biblical, God-fearing man who loves you as Christ loves the church? That man is not coming tomorrow, hun. And maybe not next year or even the year after that. Because you got to go through some refining process. You're going to have to wait and work to become yourself the biblical, God-fearing woman that man wants to have. And guess what? That man doesn't want a woman who settles. That man doesn't want a woman who doesn't recognize her own worth and will accept anything. That man doesn't want a woman who will just allow and tolerate anything in life. This is work. It's uncomfortable and sometimes it's lonely. And not everyone truly wants that. You have to be honest with yourself if that's really what you want or not. If you don't want that, it's really okay. But then you got to let go of the idea that you want something different. And you have to own that this is my choice. You are intentionally choosing to have or keep where you are. No one is forcing you. This is your decision. And the only reason you do not have that biblical man is because you don't really want him. I remember the exact moment I actually finally decided I wasn't choosing my future self. And I wasn't standing up for the life I knew I wanted, and I was settling. Now, coming to this realization is either going to free you of guilt or expectations of others that you've been trying to take up and live up to that you really don't want, or it's going to reignite in you a desire to live up to what you do want most and let go of everything else that isn't that. and this is where I got to, was I finally acknowledged I was keeping myself from having all the things I wanted. And I was like so annoyed. I was annoyed with myself on a level I can't even explain, because I was like, what are you doing? Why are you choosing this? And I was sitting and having this wrestle with God. I was in this relationship, which was exactly the same as like the last 3 relationships. And I was like, I am the common denominator here in this cycle. When do I just stop and recognize that I am doing this to myself? And friends, again, the level of annoyance was really high. I was so annoyed. I was so done. And I just had enough of my own excuses and my own attempts to blame everyone else, including like my parents for not teaching me better, for all my exes who mistreated me, which I tolerated and settled for and allowed and justified and made excuses for. I just owned it all and said, enough. And this is, friends, where this is one decision. You are one decision away from whatever you want every single day in all aspects of your life. And this is where the sacrifice comes in. The sacrifice is in letting go of every excuse, every behavior, justification, numbing, anything that you're doing that's keeping you from stepping up into that higher godly brain that reminds you who you are. And you just do not do some of the things that your lower brain wants to do anymore. So please stop sacrificing yourself for this good enough life. Stop believing the lie that something is wrong with you for being divorced or single. I promise I get it. I can't tell you how many times I thought, I wish I just had someone to share this with. I can't tell you how many times I thought, I just wish X, Y, or Z wasn't really happening or is happening. No one's coming, friend, to rescue you from yourself but God. You have to, like this verse says in Proverbs, run into his strong tower, and he will keep you safe. He will release your feet from that snare, from those thoughts of Satan keeping you back. This is what I did. I started responding to all these little thoughts that I wish I had X, Y, or Z, or I wish I didn't have to go through this season, right? I started responding to that by sharing each of these things with God. I started just getting quiet and still, and I slowly started having very different desires about what I wanted and what I had and what I wanted to share with other people. Okay, just an example here. For an example here, if you're at a point where you are having a pity party for yourself because you want to have this godly man and you want to have a godly relationship and you want to not be alone in life, I know not all of us are there. I know some of us are at this point where it's like, I'm really good. I got this. I'm actually feeling so much better by myself than I ever did with my husband. It's okay. Eventually, there's going to be a desire where you're going to want to be with somebody. There are moments of like loneliness where it would be nice to share things with somebody. These are the things that I would start sharing with God. And when I wouldn't remember and I would start going there, God would say, I am here. Here I am. I'm just waiting for you to share with me. What I started to do was like, if I would hear a love song come on the radio and I would think, someday someone's going to share this with me or something like this with me and actually mean it, I started to make a playlist of those songs. And I told myself that it was from God. And then I started listening to different music. That playlist started changing. The type of music that I considered love songs started changing. It's basically all worship music now, friends. I have edited that playlist as songs that didn't really seem relevant or applicable anymore. It really is pretty much all worship music, reminding me that I do not worry, I worship. And the God I worship is bigger and greater and higher and mightier than anything else that's going on in this world, than any discomfort or sacrifice that I am making, I have learned to just give it all to him, and he makes it so beautiful and amazing. It blows my mind. And the level of annoyance with my past self for tolerating behaviors and relationships that were so below what I knew God wanted for me has changed. I am still annoyed with that version of myself, but in a way, I'm very grateful for her because I had to have gone through those to get to that level of annoyance in order to do something different. I learned that when I wanted someone to share new insights with or things that I learned, I would write them down in a journal or I'd share it with God in a prayer. And these things became refined and I started sharing different things with God. And as he would show me more about his love for me, he would strengthen me and guide me to understand him and his love and the things he wanted me to sacrifice in the way he wanted me to sacrifice even more deeply. It is always uncomfortable, friends. It is not always easy. And yeah, it's lonely sometimes. But do you know what it is not? It is not chaotic. It is not full of conflict. It is not confusing. You are going to sacrifice something anyways. Do not let it be your peace or your relationship with God or your self-respect. I'm going to finish up by sharing something from day 58 of our Bible in 1 year with Nikki and Pippa Gumble. He quotes a writer, Eugene Peterson. He says, "We can't use God. God is not a tool or appliance or a credit card. Holy is the word that sets God apart and above our attempts to enlist him in our wish fulfillment fantasies or our utopian schemes for making our mark in the world. Holy means that God is alive on God's terms, alive in a way that exceeds our experience and imagination. Holy refers to life, burning with an intense purity that transforms everything it touches into itself." I'm going to end with Proverbs 4:23, which says, "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life." Keep your heart, friends. Run to God and let him release your feet from the snare. Have a great day. You have been listening to the Beyond Believing podcast. If you have enjoyed or benefited from anything you heard today, please take just a moment of your time and leave me a 5-star review wherever you're listening. This helps me to get my content out to you and keep it free. I love to help women and I love to share this message and I want to be able to keep sharing it with you. So that would help me immensely. And if you love this episode, you're going to love working with me in my coaching program, Selah. Get all the details at the link in my show notes. I'm here to help you rebuild your future and write your post-divorce story. This is going to be the best season yet.